My name is Richard Furrow, and I can say I am cloud hired.
That yes, come and join and get cloud hired. I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
Hey, Go Cloud Architect family. I'm Cloud Hired.
So I'm cloud hired, guys.
So I'll just say I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired.
I'm cloud hired thanks to Go Cloud Architects.
It worked for me, and now I'm cloud hired. Because of Google Architect program, I am cloud hired. See!
I am cloud hired. Thank you, Mike and the GlowCloud team.
Welcome, everyone. This is Mike Gibbs, and today we're here to help answer any tech career questions you may have. Maybe you have a goal to become a cloud architect or an AWS solutions architect. We're here to help you with that. Maybe you want to become an enterprise architect. We are here to help you with that. Maybe you want to pass the CCI exam. We can guide you on that too. I've been in technology now as an architect for well over 25 years. Network architect, security architect, enterprise architect, all the roles, and I absolutely love it. And I've spent at least 2 decades helping people just like you get your first tech job, get promoted in tech, and you can find my graduates now working at Apple, Amazon, Cisco, Google, IBM, Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, Capgemini, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Barclays Bank, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Zscaler, Nesbo, Palo Alto Networks, and any other prestigious organization. And I just want to help you get to your goals regardless of where you train. So bring us your questions. Before we actually begin, I wanted to tell you about some free initiatives we actually have to tell you about to help you build your career. Tomorrow, I will be doing a webinar on the mastering the interview and talking about why you need to perfect the interview for any great job like a cloud architect job, why mastering the interview can enhance your salary, why mastering the interview will help you get jobs that you might not get otherwise. And it's just so important. So join us on the free webinar tomorrow on how to really master the interview and why you need to. Now, right after that, we're also going to have another webinar on Monday on how to become a security architect. The security architect is one of the hottest jobs in the world. It's one of my favorite jobs that I've loved the most. So I love to talk about these things. So on Monday, we're going to talk about how to have a how to become a security architect. And if you're curious about enterprise architect or AI architect or other architects, happy to address those questions. And on any of these webinars, there'll be about 30 to 45 minutes where we'll speak, and then we'll spend the rest of the time answering any questions you have, doing anything we can to help you live and free on Zoom in these sessions. So please join me on that. And we have our 50% off summer savings deal. It won't be on for long, so take advantage of it. It's across all of our programs and services right now. So let's bring in some questions. I see there's already 2 here, Chris, but please bring us your questions. We want to help you. Flying Kites. Good to see you again, Flying Kites. Hey, Mike, could you talk more about interview mistakes or gotchas that potential cloud architects face? Absolutely. So I've interviewed thousands of architects in the last 25 years, and I've spoken to thousands of hiring managers, tech executives, and others on what they actually want. So let's talk about what the architect is and where people often go wrong. When I interview an architect, and I'm going to tell you all the things that we have to look for as an architect, as a manager or director who hires architects. When we hire an architect, the first thing we need to think of is, can I put this person in front of the CEO of a $1 billion client or a multi-billion-dollar client? And if the answer is no, I can't hire that person. And here's why that matters, flying kites. If the architect is really going to design a solution that's going to enhance the client's business performance, they have to be able to communicate with the C-suite. And if they don't look like we can put them in the C-suite by not having the way to knowing how to speak, not knowing what to talk about, not having the executive presence, unfortunately, we just can't hire the person. So that's the first thing we all look about. And the reality is the architect is a role where you're going to have to sell management into adopting your architecture. So in that understanding, and please know that, you have to have those business skills and C-suite skills. So that's the first thing that I look for, and most managers do, especially for solutions architect roles. Now, after I determine, can that person speak to the C-suite, the next thing I have to determine is how good are their communication skills. Because the job of the architect is this: to take the needs of the business and translate them into something that the engineers can ultimately build, to guide the executives on the strategy, and then get the information, lead a technical team to create a design. So if that person doesn't have communication skills, the interview is over right then and there. Now, the next thing I'm really concerned about is the presentation skills. So I actually released a video the other day about the case study interview and the presentation interview. Here's where most people with a strong engineering background tend to fail these interviews. They typically have a lot of knowledge, which helps them in the early stages of the interviews. But the bigger problem is the last part of the interview is going to be a presentation. You're going to have to present to a panel. You're going to have to present to business people, tech people, and answer questions live. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. So I hope that actually helps. So, and I'm sorry, that video is tomorrow, not the other day. I just knew it was being released because I remember recording it. So when it comes, or released today, actually. So when it comes to the next set of interview mistakes, is the person might not remember that an architect is not an engineer. So after interviewing thousands of people on an architecture job, someone comes in and they're too techie. And the feedback on the person is they're too techie and I can't put them in front of a business audience. So that you have to remember that the architect is not an engineer, and you have to prove that you are an executive that understands technology as a tool, and you create a strategy, not build. And that needs to be there. So those are the first things that are the people that get you because they don't know what the role is. They show themselves as wrong, and it ends there. Now, there are other things that we employers look for, and we have to see in the interview is the person has some energy, enthusiasm about them. We're very concerned about their emotional intelligence, and if they don't display that, we don't hire them. We're very concerned about their ability to go above and beyond and show that they're willing to do whatever it takes. And we're really looking for a person to know what they know and know what they don't know. So in an interview, we're going to ask someone what they know, and then we're going to grill them on what they know. And if they don't know what they said they know, we can't hire them either. And now the next mistake is pretty common is people, if we ask an interview question and people will answer something that they don't understand. And they're basically lying or bluffing with the answer, and we can't hire someone that lied. So for example, if you don't know something on an interview, for someone was going to ask me some crazy question about partitioning certain types of databases, not so NoSQL databases where it's normal, and I didn't know, I might tell the person, I'm sorry, I've really not been on that side of the database world where I've really had to do into anything heavy on the database side. I've always worked with database architects. I've always worked with big data people for this. But what I have done is I've done this, this, and this. But I love this world. I'm energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about learning. And if you want to know my strengths, let's talk about this, this, and this. That is much better because it shows you're honest. It shows you know what you know, and you redirect me in the interview to point to your strengths. So that's another major gotcha that I see is people just lie on the interview. Now, going beyond that, a lot of it comes down to the first interview question. As it turns out, statistically speaking, hiring managers in the first 7 seconds determine if they like the person or not. So in the first 7 seconds, you have to know how to walk in, how to greet the person, how to create rapport. And the people that don't know that, they tend to do very poorly on interviews. And someone like me, I've studied interviews. I've read, well, I don't want to tell you how many thousands of books on psychology, sales, and these types of things. I've never been on an interview where I didn't get the offer. And I've gotten better offers than the one I applied for in multiple cases throughout my career, because I know how to win the interview. So in that interview, you got to prove that you're the solution. In the interview, what most people do is they ask the company, what can you do for me? Where in the interview, you got to make them love you and show what you can do for them. They're your biggest mistakes that I've seen in the last 6,000 interviews that I've conducted, especially as it pertains to architects. Great question, Flying Kites. Feel free to ask more. Cloud Crafted. I want to know about if someone is starting their career with cloud firstly, so how can the person find an internship and jobs as a fresher? And what and the kind of cloud projects? Okay, Cloud Crafted, I really want to help you. So the first thing we have to do is figure out what you want to do. And when we know what you want to do, then we can build you a plan. I'm going to tell you right now, Cloud Crafted, there's no fresher jobs. There haven't been for 3 years, and there never will be again. And if my team's able to find it behind the scenes, we can release those videos that I released, 3-4 years ago, why I said why the fresher jobs would never be released again. But you can still get a job, Cloud Crafted, and you can get a great job. And I'm going to tell you what to do in a minute. But I want you to understand why there are no fresher jobs, and there never will be in again. So prior to cloud computing, we had a lot of fresher jobs where we'd have people rack and stack servers, and then they would plug them in and power them on. You need a lot of these people. And then we had people that would just install the operating system on these servers, what have you. Now, as it turns out, I can now have one DevOps engineer replace about 100 of those people, just like that. But the other problem is jobs like architecture can't be replaced by AI, and I can tell you why if you're curious later. But jobs of a DevOps engineer can also be done by AI. So any job Cloud Crafted that's how to code, replaced by AI, dead. Anything that's related to those junior entry-level roles, we just don't need people for that anymore. But don't feel bad. I'll go through some people that were just like you. Ivan, for example, was a student of mine. He came to me and he said, I want my first tech job. And we had a very nice conversation. And I said, there's no fresher jobs, but I said, I can get you a solutions architect job or a cloud architect job. He took my course, trained in my program, and landed himself a beautiful AWS solutions architect job at AWS in approximately 6 months. At the same time, his best friend, Jordan, went to the same program with him, and he's also at AWS. And they've both been since promoted since they've been there for the last couple of years. Now, I can also tell you that I have a 20-year-old Daniel who got hired at JP Morgan Chase as a solutions architect as his first tech job. I can also tell you that I have people like Wallace Agana, you can see a video of him on our YouTube channel, that was a sales rep whose first tech job was enterprise architect at JP Morgan Chase. And I can give you example after example. So what I want you to understand is we don't need people to just do stuff anymore. What we need people now are people that can understand trade-offs, have a degree of professional judgment, know what to do, what not to do, know when to do it, when to choose option 1, when to choose option 2. When they choose option 2, we're going to lose this. When we choose option 3, we're going to get this. Knowing the impact of one change in the system to the rest of the system, that's exactly what we need. And those are the jobs that are there. And these jobs pay a lot of money. I've gotten plenty of people, their first job between $150,000 and $200,000 a year as a solutions architect. I can give you lots of examples, including Pierre, who was a sailboat operator, a young man in Canada, who's now working at Leaseweb. So the secret for you is, and this is what I did when I left internal medicine for tech 25 years ago, is to remember, it's not your experience, it's your skills. It's never your experience, it's your capability. Do you know what an airplane pilot's first job is? Flying the airplane. Do you know what the surgeon's first job is? Doing surgery. They didn't become a nurse first, they became a surgeon first. And it's the same thing for lawyers, doctors, even architects. It's the level of your skill that determines your actual job. So you're not going to find an internship, because in order to do an internship, here's what has to happen. I have to dedicate a $200,000 a year person to go train you for 6 to 9 months. And then you can't help us with anything. We're just doing it to train you. And it would only work if we were going to hire you after the fact. So internships are also dead. So what I did is create an architect program where you do the entire job, and it's an internship until the day you're done, and graduation from our program is our hired. So there's that. Now, Cloud Crafted, I want to give you some guidance on careers that can't be replaced by AI. So anything that is just doing, completely gone in the next few years. Anything that is based on planning. And this applies to a cloud architect, a security architect, an enterprise architect. It also applies to the sales engineer. It also applies to the account manager, who won't be replaced by technology, the sales rep. It also refers to the senior leadership. The reason architect jobs and all these other jobs can't be replaced is we have to start with the executive team. We have to build a relationship with the client. We have to learn all about their business goals, business pain points, and business challenges. We then need to speak to a large number of stakeholders. We need to analyze what the stakeholders have told us. We need to go back with the stakeholders with ideas. We then need to figure out what the business is, map out what the business is, how the business operates, business value streams. And this means hundreds of conversations of 40 to 50 people for 6 to 12 months. And you have to lead that. And then once you know what that is, you've got to lead another team of people to figure out what kind of technology the company has, and then lead another team of people to create a strategy that's going to help that company, and then create a governance structure and a marketing plan. So that's why none of the roles, the solutions architect, cloud architect, enterprise architect, AI architect, sales engineer, account executive, or senior leadership can ever be replaced. But so go out there and find great skills. And if you want to be like a network engineer, make sure you go and get a CCIE. The CCIE is what I did when I started my career. You can see that green badge there. My CCIE number is 7417. I was practicing internal medicine. I'm a nurse practitioner. And I said, I want to get a networking engineering job. So I did a CCNA, CCNP, CCDP. And by the time I was ready to pass the CCIE, I had my first tech job as a senior engineer. There's no reason to ever start as a fresher. So go out there and go figure out what you want and go build your depth. Cloud Crafted, if you want to tell me what you like, I can talk to you about various cloud careers, which ones are safe, which ones are not. If you want to go into an engineering career anyway, what you can do to be safe, because there's still things you can do in an engineering career to be safe. But the first thing we need to know is the destination. So tell me what you want to do. Tell me what interests you. Are you interested in breaking into systems? Like a penetration tester? That's a job that's hard to replace because there's a lot of communication and social engineering there. Are you interested in designing a strategy to protect the organization from harm? That's security architecture. Are you interested in designing the network for the underlying technology? That's another career and a completely different set of skills. So tell me where you want to go and I'll build you a plan. We'll do it right now. And I really want to help you, but I just need to know where you want to go. Great question, Cloud Crafted. Let me know some more. Hi, Mike. What would you say the career satisfaction percentage is? In what career, TAW 3000? As it pertains to architects, cloud architects, solutions architects, enterprise architects, I haven't met many people that were not happy in their life. Now, having said that, I was a network engineer for 3 painful months, and that was a tough job. I had to come in at 3 o'clock in the morning to create change inside the system. It was icky, highly icky. And then all of a sudden I'm an architect, and instead of working 12-hour days and having people yell at me, I'm taking them for sushi. I'm having conversations with them. I'm having dinners with clients. I'm playing golf with my clients. I'm giving presentations to clients. I'm having more discussions. I'm doing some research. I'm studying and learning along the way. See, I love that. And then go, Mike, go work with this client in Dubai. Okay, that's really fun. I got to see the Burj Al Arab, which I really enjoyed. Stayed on Sheikh Zayed Road, got to meet lots of wonderful people. And then I came back and did my next architectural project. And see, I loved that. I absolutely loved it. And that's why I practiced as an architect as long as I could. At some point, I was deeply disabled in an injury, martial arts injury, and couldn't walk for a couple of years. So I started doing more coaching. And I love that too. And I find out I love that even more. But most architects are happy. It's not one of those thankless jobs. So TAW 3000, you can almost look at it this way. When you're the front person and you're out there and you're the face of something like an architect role or a sales role, everybody loves you. You're everybody's hero because you're bringing money in. Now, when you are in the back end, you're actually the worker. And the workers typically have a harder job than the people that are in the front end. The person that talks like the architect and gives the presentation works half the hours in the back end engineer for double the pay. So it's a pretty easy job. Now, to be fair, the hardest job I think in the world is probably being a registered nurse. And I was a paramedic, firefighter, so I know some tough jobs. But cloud architects, great. Enterprise architects, at that level, you're an executive once you reach enterprise architect status. And it's more meetings, and these are much more comfortable meetings as an enterprise architect. Now, when I'm an enterprise architect, I typically put my good suits on. So if you don't mind wearing a suit, that's the downside of the enterprise architect role. In many places, we tend to be that way. So I kind of hope that helps, but I love it. But ask more. But I love the role, and I've never had an unhappy day as an architect. I really haven't. I had many unhappy days as an engineer. I had enjoyed my job being a paramedic, but some of those days were pretty stressful, and I left the day kind of sad. In internal medicine, I had to make decisions, and no decision was easy, so that always made me stressed and sad. All of a sudden, I'm in an architect role, and it's the best thing I've ever done, and I've loved the last 30 years of it. Thanks, Todd 3000. Please feel free to ask more questions. Hello, Mr. Gibbs. I'm currently an IM analyst, and you signed up for the Security Architect program yesterday. Just want to know if there are live classes before February. So, Robert, there are live classes all the time. Meaning, if you signed up yesterday, you could be in tomorrow's Security Architect class at night. And we want you to start immediately. Hold on. And if you signed up for the program in February versus yesterday, go ahead and start taking the live classes now too, or whatever the situation is. But you said so there are live classes. Now we hadn't had any live classes before the program started in February, but there's been live classes ever since we launched the program in February. Also, can you become an IM architect through the Security Architect program? Well, Robert, let me kind of give you two sides of it. As it turns out, we designed this program as a security architect program, but we didn't just make it a security architect program. We knew the future wasn't just your standard architectures. There were going to be more zero trust architectures. So in addition to covering normal architecture and cloud security architecture, we also get heavy in IM architecture. In fact, the person that's actually teaching the courses in the evening, I created the course along with another CCIU friend of mine. And we've obviously got input from other security architects as well, but the person who teaches Isaac is actually an IM architect. And the reason I asked Isaac to teach this is all my security architects get a tremendous amount of defense and depth security from me, and network security and all the other really types of security from me. And that way Isaac comes in a Thursday night slot, and he really teaches IM and customer IM versus traditional IM, and how these zero trust architectures work, and all the authentication and authorization mechanisms out there. So yes, you probably could become an IM architect, but the question is, why would you? You're going to earn more as a security architect, and there's going to be more jobs out there as a security architect. So the answer is yes, but you'll probably earn better and have a lot more career potential as a security architect. And it'll be a much more strategic role because it's a bigger role. It'll get you closer to the CISO's office as a security architect versus an IM architect. So just something for you to think about. But you probably could. It's not the focus of our program, IM, but because we have such a heavy amount, and because of Isaac's heavy IM architect background, you probably could, but and probably will do really, really well with that. But I still think you'll be better off as a security architect, especially as IM is a critical component of security, but it's probably one of the 8 components as opposed to just one. And the higher level you get, the more you earn. Just something to think about. But sure, you should be fine either way. Arch like Victor. Hi, Mike. You have a master's degree in information systems and an AWS solutions architect. Currently enrolled in the Go Cloud program, looking to secure a solutions or cloud architect role. I can't wait for you to do so too. Come off camera the next time you're in class. I'd love to see you. Love to meet you. I'd love to maybe you do the next presentation and the next architecture assignment. I'm looking forward to your role as well. Thank you for being with us. Jose, how could an engineer become an architect? You might want to be an architect, but until you're in the trenches, you won't know it. Engineers before now are techs. So, Jose, let me be honest with you. The way an engineer becomes an architect is someone teaches them how. And I'll give you examples. And the reason the difference is there's such a huge difference. So when you transition from an engineer to an architect, a few things have to change. The first thing is your mindset. As an engineer, we're prone to think about the tech. As an architect, we have to focus on the business. As the engineer, you're going to want to constantly go to the tech, and as the architect, we're not going to get that deep. It's more about the strategy, the organization's people, the way that people do things, supplying the people with the best way to do things, and then giving them technology to augment their job and make their job easier, not harder. Now, that is all business. That is having conversation with stakeholders. That means speaking with the C-suite. That means finding the employees and asking where the pain points in their job. That means mapping out business processes and mapping out value streams, that kind of thing. Creating governance structures, creating a cultural change. So there's so much that goes to it. So Jose, I'm going to invite you to the How to Become an Architect webinar that we're going to do on Monday. That one's for security architecture, and I'm sure the week after that we'll do another architect webinar, but at least that will talk about it so you'll see what architecture is. And what I will tell you is the engineering background you have will ultimately, years from now, help you, and it will ultimately help you get a higher salary, but it's not going to get you there on its own. And if I give you an example, say Richard F. was a college student, and we trained him and got him his first tech job at MUFG Bank as a security, with cloud architect. That was his first tech job. At the same time, Jeffrey's first tech job was a cloud solutions architect over at Kalian. And Balwinder's first was a stay-at-home mom whose first job was at Microsoft as a cloud solutions architect. Now, they took me about 6 months on average to train. At the same time, I had Jazz, who was a cloud engineer and a rock star cloud engineer. It took about a year to train him over. And the reason is when you have to, it's a new career that you have to learn. And not only is a new career, you have to change the way you think, the way you act, the way you speak, the way your brand is. So I can say that Harsha was a really solid cloud engineer. And it took about 14 months for him to get him trained and moved into an architect role. And I can also tell you that who's another really good example? Logo. Logo was such a delight, so smart, and such a great engineer. And it took about a year for her to go from that cloud engineer to cloud architect. But the issue was Lenny was our video editor, and he became a cloud architect in about 6 months. And Jermaine got his first tech job in about 10 months, and he was selling landscaping gear, and it was an enterprise architect role. So the point is anybody can get any job they want. I mean, I used to practice internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner. I had my own clinic. 6 months later, I'm a senior network engineer, and 9 months later, I'm working on Wall Street as a lead architect. 12 months after that, I'm a principal architect at Comcast, and a little bit after that, I'm another principal architect at another company. So the point is, you can do it. You're just going to have to get trained, and that you're going to have to be taught how to sell, how to lead, how to manage stakeholders, the business necessary to understand business. And when you get that, it's going to be a good role. Now, I can tell you, when I have people with a big engineering role, their first architect job doesn't pay 150 to 200. It often pays 200 to 250 to 300, so it will benefit you long term. Sometimes more, but the key is to just understand they're different. It's like a physician who builds the plan and a nurse who carries out the plan. Each one is equally important. You have one doctor and no nurses, everybody's dead. You have a bunch of nurses, but no one to actually create the strategy and the plan. Well, that's not a problem too. So it just takes a team, but that's what it would take. It would just take the right training. We could train you, and I'm sure you would have a great career, and I'm sure you would love it. And I'm pretty sure you'd come back and say, wow, I can't believe how much easier my life is. I used to actually work, and the first 9 months, yeah, a little bit stressful. And after that, I think you'll absolutely love it. Edward, you're currently a software engineer. Is it feasible for you to make a transition from a developer to a solutions architect? Absolutely. As long as you get the training, because knowing how to write code is different than how to speak with stakeholders. Knowing how to write code is different than how do you design the demilitarized zone for your website. So it's just a different set of skills. And the magic is we can learn anything we want. I mean, we can literally pick up anything we want and learn it. You know, I remember, and I was fascinated this when I was younger, and it just fascinated me. I somehow almost accidentally got a psychology degree in addition to the other degrees that I had, because it was just so interesting to me. And it made me realize that like a kitten, and I have a great kitten, she's now a cat, but a kitten can survive on their own. They'll hunt, they'll find food. A baby kitten can survive. They're actually born with instincts. It's pretty incredible. Now, a baby left on its own, a human baby, will die because humans have zero instincts, but humans can learn almost anything. I know friends that became physicists. I have friends that became airline captains. I have friends that became neurosurgeons. I have friends that I trained that are now cloud architects. The key is you can do anything you want. You just have to learn it. I mean, I don't think it would be feasible to go from, say, software developer to airplane pilot without getting the training along the way. I know it's not possible to go from nurse to physician without some training along the way either. But the point is, of course you can. Why don't you join us on one of the architects we have, either the security architect one or the cloud architect one we do next week, and that'll get you there. So let me also show you the difference between a solutions architect and a cloud architect. And if you understand that, it may actually change the roles that you actually really want and you're going to find interesting. So let me just draw it out for you. I'm going to draw out an IT organization on the fly. And I want you to understand what all these roles are and what we do and where the pay is at the highest pay. So if we go to the top of the IT organization of any company, what you have at the top is you have the Chief Information Officer. Now, this is an executive position over here. This role is a C-suite role. This person over here, the Chief Information Officer, is responsible for two things. The organization's strategy, IT strategy, how the technology is going to support the business needs. So they are ultimately responsible for that, which is strategy and design. And they are ultimately responsible for running the department. So what you'll typically see in a big tech company is you'll see that you have like an SVP of IT or a VP of IT. This person owns and manages everybody in the entire organization. Now, what you'll also typically find is you'll find a chief architect. You may find this chief architect called enterprise architect as well, where that's the most senior one. You may sometimes call it her chief technology officer. Now, this particular role, when you see this, and it's more of a chief architect role, but sometimes it's called CTO, chief technology officer. This is an executive role. This pays between $500,000 and $1.5 million a year. So this is an executive role. Now, what I want you to see is 100% business role, 95% business role, 95% business role. Now, and when we go one step down, we typically run into the enterprise architecture practice. Now, the enterprise architecture practice, and I'm calling it a practice because there's usually many of them. What goes on at this level, when we're enterprise architects, and this is going to be the next highest paying architect job as a rule, is we're looking at the organization. We're spending a lot of time on strategy. And what I mean by strategy, we're looking at how the organization operates, where the organization wants to go, the way people do their jobs. Are they doing their jobs in the best manner possible? If not, how can we optimize that business architecture to improve it? So that's what we're doing there. So, this is the role where I take out my Armani and Canali suits in this role and this role, and I've done both. I mean, that's what we're dealing with here is all that business executive stuff. So here we're responsible for the 3 and 4 clouds, what have you. Now, when we come down one level, now this role itself here, this is about 80 to 100% business. And whatever's left is tech. Now, underneath that, in today's world, we're typically going to have cloud architects. Now, this is at any company other than AWS. They have wacky terms for cloud architects there. Their architects are more solutions architects, but we'll go through what a real solutions architect is and what a real cloud architect is. So in today's world, no real business is going to look like a certification where it's on AWS. 98% of businesses are going to be distributed across 2 or more clouds plus a data center. So that cloud architect is now going to be responsible for everything across all the organizations, clouds, and data centers. And why data centers? Because the data centers are now running cloud software like OpenStack or Nutanix or VMware everywhere. So they're all clouds now with auto scaling, function as a service, all that kind of same thing. So the cloud architect here can't be too technical because they're going to be responsible for 3 clouds and data centers and hundreds of vendor stuff. So this role is about 75% business. And it's going to be about 25% tech. Now, this does not mean you'll be touching the technology. You will not be touching the technology in an architect job. And if you do, you'll never be able to do real architecture. So this is, when I say technology, it's analyzing trade-offs. Do we use that AWS WAF? Or should we use the Palo Alto WAF because it's got behavioral anomaly detection, and AWS WAF only has signature detection, which means the AWS WAF will get hit by new attacks, where the Palo Alto WAF may use AI to sense things that feel like a pattern of behavior, then attack and stop it in its tracks without knowing about it. So when we start thinking about those kind of things, this is all evaluating trade-offs. Do we put 50% on AWS and 50% Azure? Do we put it all on Azure? Do we take the technical debt of using an internal proprietary service, or do we stay open? So that's what we do at this level. So now that's that cloud architect. So you have to understand it can't get too busy. Now, when we go one step below those architects, and a lot of times I train people to be cloud architects and they get a solution architect job as their first job. We love this because the solution architect job is very entry level. Yes, I've gotten people like Jermaine, who was selling landscaping gear, and enterprise architect job as his first job. Yes, I got Nafuli in the UK. His first tech job was a chief technology officer, so he's in this role. Yes, I've had someone like Wallace Agana. You can see a video of him on our YouTube channel, who got this as his first tech job ever at JP Morgan Chase Bank. But this is a big role. But here we're going to have the solutions architects. And here's why we have the solutions architects. And I want you to know what they do. The solutions architect is like a sales engineer, but with a little bit more polish and posh. And what they're there to do is they are there to help design, present, and sell the company's solutions. So AWS, if I'm a cloud architect and I call AWS, their solutions architects are going to try to provide me guidance and try to convince me to use their stuff so I can pay for their stuff. At the same time, I'm in this role, I can't just count on AWS. I'm going to have Azure come in. And because nobody's going to put their eggs in one basket in today's world. Nobody, for the most part, most people aren't crazy enough to do that. So now with Azure, Azure is going to send their sales rep and their solutions architect to try to design, present, and sell me stuff to run on our systems. So Google will do the same thing. So they're going to be the solutions architects. They're going to be in a much more junior role. But these are fun because they're pre-sales roles, can't be replaced by tech, and can pay very well. For example, a principal solutions architect at Google pays about $500,000 a year on average. I think it's about $508,000 according to Glassdoor. And whereas a principal solutions architect at Azure pays about $378,000 a year, and the solutions architect at AWS is about $372,000 on average, with a range of $300 to $500 for the AWS and Azure, and a range of say $400 to $700 for Google. So they're going to be there. Now, the other people we're going to have as a cloud architect is we're going to have specialty architects. We'll have, say, a network architect that's responsible for some of the network architectures. We'll have a security architect over here that's going to be responsible for the security. Now, we may have an IAM architect working for the security architect down here, for example. And because they're in a supporting role, they'll be basically working for the security architect. But what we're also going to have, let's say, application architects that are going to lead the application design. Now, we're also going to have, say, AI architects leading AI architectures. And then when it comes down to that, we're going to also have solutions architects that are going to come in. So we're going to have a solutions architect come in from, say, Cisco to help design, present, and sell networking to Cisco. Arista Networks is going to send their solutions architects to help convince me to do with their designs and sell us a solution. And of course, for AI architectures, NVIDIA is going to send their solutions architects. So those kinds of things are where they're at. Generally speaking, just so you can plan your career, as you move up, you get paid more. As you get more technical, you typically get paid less. And the reason why is in this role and in this role, you have much more visibility to the CIO. Next is this role. As we start going down specialty roles, we just don't have the same kind of visibility of the executive suite. That's why the more business, typically speaking, the higher the pay. I kind of hope that helped. I wanted to give you an overview, but yes, you can do it as long as you get the right training, but you can do any of these jobs. Said, hi, you've missed any good question and answers on this QA. You blame Alonzo that grilled you with excellent questions this morning. But let me talk to convince him why I wanted to join this great program. Nice to meet you. Very insightful. Saeed, I'd love to work with you. Love to help you in any way that I can. And look forward to the day if you work with us where you tell me you've got this great executive architecture role, because that's really what I love hearing. I do this because it's what I love. I love architecture, want the world to have it. And, at this point, I think I can say in every continent except for Antarctica, we've gotten people architecture roles, and I'm pretty proud of that. If I can find a way to train a penguin in Antarctica, I would do it, but I don't really think I'm getting penguins any architect roles anytime soon, but definitely love penguins. So nice to meet you, Saeed, and I hope to see you in class. Serena, you currently stack multiple contracts, customer to customer as 1099 as a senior IT consultant. Are these jobs remote, not 50 plus hour weeks? So let me give you a few things. Serena, unfortunately, I've had to fire a lot of people in my life because they were working multiple contracts at the same time. Now, and they weren't getting enough job done for any of them. I also know people that have put themselves in a very dangerous position. And what I mean by this is, let's say you wanted to do a contract with IBM and a contract with HP at the same time. They are competitors. Chances are you would hear potential information, and that could land you in jail. So unless it's publicly traded companies, you don't need to worry. No job of any function that's going to be here for any time in the future is going to be 100% remote. Not a cloud architect, not a security architect. All the completely remote jobs are going away because it's either stuff that can be done by AI, which can be done completely remote. The architect job can't be completely remote. It can be partially remote. And here's the reason why. And it's the same reason why this job can't be replaced by AI. There's going to be a time where you're going to have to go in the office and create your team. And when you go and create your team, which you're going to have to lead, you're going to have to create the team. You're going to have to do some team building activities. You're going to have to level set everybody, take them out for dinner, drinks, get everybody happy. That you're going to have to do in person. When you actually speak to the C-suite, if you have the opportunity to speak to the CEO and the CFO and the board, you want to be in person for that because you want to make an impact. Now, when I kick off an architecture project, I typically have to meet there. And typically when the team is doing their job, I do it video, but I periodically go and check in with team members. I could be on an architecture project that could be going on for a year, and there could be 3 key team members. And say, I live in South Florida, but one of them is in, say, San Jose, California. I'm periodically going to visit them in San Jose. And then I'm periodically going to meet the next person from my team in England or Dubai or wherever they're at. So the key is, so I'd be very cautious on the multiple contracts. A lot of employers are finding it. I saw, and I've unfortunately had to dismiss multiple people for this. And a lot of employers that I know are talking about it, and they're talking about dismissing people for that. So be careful. Definitely be careful if you work with publicly traded companies, anybody that's on the stock market, because that could land you in prison with multiple jobs. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. The digital nomad life, it depends on what you do. But as long as you're not coding or configuring things like that or doing any of the kind of things that can be automated, it could be good. But I know what it's like. I mean, I worked from my home in Palm Beach when the most of the work I did was in New York City and California. I live occasionally at my home in Greece as an architect, and I do that for, say, maybe a month in the summertime, and I kind of like that. Sometimes I go to my house in New Jersey where my family is, and I stay with my family. And then, I spend there for a couple weeks at a time, and I do that too. But, and you can move around, but you have to be willing to travel to the client. You have to be able to get to the client. You have to be able to get to the meeting. You have to be able to be seen, and be thankful for the jobs like that. And meeting with stakeholders and selling and giving presentations and evaluating trade-offs and using professional judgment, because these are the jobs that can't be replaced by AI. So I would think about that as you plan your career. I'm not going to say this job is 100% remote. Definitely not. This job is the kind of job where you work one job and you earn several $100,000 a year and you stay there and they take very good care of you. That's what this job is. This is not the kind of job where you're doing 3 or 4 of them to try and get by. Not at all. One big job. This is an executive position. Hope that helps. Divanka, if I hope I said that right. Hello. These days, many companies are focusing on security. Talk briefly. What should be the main focus on security? EKS? So, no. If that's what you're thinking, that's not security. And the reality is, I probably can't use AKS anyway because I'm going to use a multi-cloud environment, and in a multi-cloud environment for a Kubernetes control plane, I'm either going to have to build my own, or if I'm not going out there to build my own, I'm going to go to IBM OpenStack, and that's what people do. I can't use the Azure one. So when it comes to security, we have to look at the domains of security. And there are so many domains that actually go into security. It's not one element. And this is why the security architect role pays on average $229,000 a year. And the reality is you can go up far, far, far further than that with some skills. So if we actually look at the security skills that you actually need and what goes into cybersecurity, I'll let you know exactly what they are. So I'm going to give you the technical skills because I don't know whether you're looking for an architect role or an engineering or just merely asking about cybersecurity. One of the key components of any kind of cybersecurity career is risk management. To be able to identify assets and classify assets and catalog critical systems and data and applications, the ability to assess risks, evaluate threats, evaluate vulnerabilities, and look for the impacts of potential threats, the ability to prioritize risks by likelihood and business impact, and the ability to design controls as an architect or deploy them as an engineer to mitigate risks. The ability to work and develop incident response plans, like, for example, how you would handle a security breach, who would speak to the press, who would speak to regulators, risk registers where you maintain risk controls. Now, under security, we also have network security, and that's things like network access controls, things like packet filtering, firewalls, network segmentation, micro-segmentation like VLANs versus, say, private VLANs, traffic shaping, QoS policies to prioritize main traffic over worm-type traffic, the ability to shape traffic and rate limit, and, of course, encryption protocols like IPsec. So that's something to think about. Now, that's network security and risk management. But the other things that go into security architect careers are things like data security, where we would classify data and control access to the data and make sure the data is what it's supposed to be, like integrity, if you will. Making sure the data doesn't leave or exfiltrate our systems. That's a data loss prevention, encrypting data, and things like data lifecycle management to make sure that we don't keep data too long, because that becomes an attack vector for hackers as well. And then a lot of data privacy things go into what we do, things like tokenization, obfuscation, what have you. Now, there's going to be a lot that goes into application security as well. Things like code checks, input validation, secure session management between systems. This is all part of the cybersecurity wheelhouse. And then we get into things like identity access management, whether that be federated identity access management or single sign-on or cloud access security brokers, or why we might want to use a context-aware IAM system versus traditional role-based system, for example. We might get involved in the types of authentication. Do we check the iris, for example? Do you check the retina? Do you check the fingerprint? Do you check the face? And we look at the trade-offs of them. Other things security-wise, realistically speaking, we have to consider physical security as well. Because if you can access the tech gear or even the buildings is a problem. So we often think physical therapy, security. I get involved sometimes fences, guards, dogs, locks, fire suppression, emergency preparedness, including how do you provide emergency meals and food and generator supply, fuel and things like that for emergencies. There are a lot in security that's related to cryptography, symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, public key cryptography, what goes into digital signatures, hashing, preventing attacks on the cryptographic system. And in security and a security career, you probably need to understand some security frameworks. So there's a lot to learn in these careers. Where did I minimize this? Bear with me a second. So there's a lot that goes into security. But you're thinking of is just a basic component of a cloud provider that you probably can't even use. So we have to focus on all of it. And sure, some of that is focused on securing the container, but some of that's focused on IAM, and some of that's focused on making sure the storage is there. And some of it's making sure that you can't get there in the first place by the network, even if you wanted to hack it. So it takes everything to secure it. Great question. You can learn a little more about security in the CCSP and the CISM programs on this website, and they're free. My team will drop that there on YouTube. They're completely free programs to put out there. And of course, if you want to learn how to be a security architect, we've got a program for that, and we're going to talk about it Monday night. And that's the best job in the world. Freedom Lands. Mike, when a cloud architect is hired, does the employer and the cloud architect sign an agreement that the cloud architect will only work with this employer and no such other employer? In most any job that matters, you're going to have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which says you can't provide information from one to the other. And if you work for any job where they're going to pay you $250,000 to $1 million a year per more, it's going to be at a publicly traded company, and it may be illegal for you to work at another company. Illegal. And I remember how bad it was. So I was working at Cisco, and I was supporting the IBM account, and a person on my team was working on the HP account, and he stayed at my house. He wanted to come to Florida. Everybody wanted to come to Palm Beach. He came visit my house, and he tried to get me to go to his dinner with HP. And I said, I can't go to the HP dinner because I'm with the IBM account, and I've got a non-disclosure agreement, and so do you. So in those cases, I couldn't accidentally let out some information that I knew about IBM. And if he accidentally let out some information about HP and it got to the other side, that could have caused him lots and lots of problems. So it's not that you sign a contract that says you can't work for another employer. For the most part, nobody does that. But you do have to say that proprietary things are kept secret, what kind of information you can use, how you can use the equipment, where you can use the equipment. And they may also have a no-compete clause. And not that no-compete clauses are heavily enforceable, but the no-compete clause says that you can't potentially, for a period of a year or 2 or 6 months or whatever, work for a competitor company. So let's talk about what you can do. So I know people working at tech companies that had restaurants. Totally fine. I had other businesses, but they were not related to tech. They were totally fine. I also, when I worked in tech, would occasionally volunteer and practice internal medicine or physical medicine and rehab. I like to do it occasionally for free to see patients that can't get the help because they can't afford it. So I like to do that. That is not a conflict of interest. But if I tried to work for Cisco and Juniper Networks at the same time, that might be a huge problem. I kind of hope that helps. It's all about conflict of interest or lack thereof. Chris, we can go to the next one. Is it really possible to get hired as an enterprise architect as a first job from a non-tech background? Well, the Foley got hired as a chief technology officer. I'm going to count that as an enterprise architect. I will tell you that Jermaine was selling landscaping gears, and he got multiple offers from some of the most prestigious companies you could as his first job. Now, what was good about Jermaine? He had very good sales skills. So for him, it was no big deal. Now, Wallace, by the way, he made a video on our YouTube channel. You can check it out with Wallace Agana. He was in sales as well. And because his sales skills were good, his first tech job was at JP Morgan Chase as an enterprise architect. Now, I had another student, Al, and Al also came from a sales background. And he took his first job as a senior solutions architect at Deloitte, and now is director of architecture at another company a couple of years later. So the answer is, it's not about your background. It's about how good you are. Now, I've also had people like Pritipal that worked with me that had 20 years of a background, and I had to take him and train him to be an enterprise architect, and he is, because engineering just does not teach architecture. I can say that, Angelo came to me with a beautiful application architect background and left as an enterprise architect. So does background matter? It depends how good you are. It depends how well you present yourself. It depends on how good your leadership skills are. And it depends on how competent you really are. If we walked in and I said, could you talk about what goes into a business architecture and talk about the impact on business processes and business outcomes, and I got a really good answer. Okay. And then if I could say, could you talk to the trade-offs about this model of an enterprise or this model of an enterprise, and they can do it. If they've got it in here, I don't care how they've got it in here. So, it's interesting, Tommy. When I came into tech, it was very odd to me. See, where I come from, you couldn't work until you had about 7 or 8 years of education and were fully licensed after your education. And on day one, you started the role. I mean, my first role in internal medicine as a nurse practitioner, I was practicing internal medicine. It wasn't like I had a day before that where I did something different, because it's a just different job. That was my first day. And the first day of an airplane pilot's job is flying an airplane. And a surgeon's first day on the job is surgery. So it's not the issue. It's how good you are. How good is your business acumen? How good is your leadership skills? How good is your executive presence? How good are you by being able to communicate with stakeholders, negotiate with stakeholders, lead people? And it's pretty easy to assess that by watching you present, hearing what you say, hearing the way you say it, seeing if you've got that oomph, that executive presence along the way. And if you've got the skills, you've got the skills. So where I came from, you had to learn it before the job. Now, anatomy is obviously something that's been pretty important to me in my life. If I have to inject the subdeltoid bursa, for example, I need to know where that needle goes. There's a reason I'm saying this. So I had 7 years of school before I touched the patient, like before I was allowed to legally to touch the patient. Now, one of my best friends, his name is Todd. Todd is a yoga instructor and a great yoga instructor and a massage therapist. He did not need to study 7 years to practice. Now, Todd and I are such anatomy fans, and when we both get into yoga, we start going in there and having these deep anatomy discussions. Todd knows yoga just as well. Anatomy just as well as me. Now, for the medical professional in me, that would be, well, how is that possible? He didn't go to school for 7 years. He spent a lifetime learning it. So the reality is, Tommy, you can either spend a lifetime trying to learn things along the way, or you can just get trained and taught how to do them and be able to do them immediately. Napoleon Hill wrote a really good book about it. It's an old book, like a 100-year-old book, and it's still so applicable today. He said, you have the opportunity to start at the bottom and try to learn the job and work your way up, and you generally won't make it too far. He said, or you can train to be great and get a mid-career job as your first job, like a solutions architect job is a mid-career, potentially the cloud architect is mid-career. Enterprise architect could be mid-career if it's a lower one, and is a senior career if it's a chief enterprise architect or something like that. So it depends on the company. But the answer is yes, it can be done if you're great, if you do the learning and prove how great you are. So with Tommy, with us, we do things a little different. And the reason our results are different, it's kind of part of this 5-part system that we use, and it's very different. The first thing that we do is make sure you have all the skills to be in the top 25% of the job. Because when you have the top 25% of the skills in the job, no one cares about your background. They're like, what can you do for me? Wow, this person's great. Now, after that, it's about, do you have the attributes what the employers want? And I have to tell you, if I told you that 89% of the time people fail the interview related to soft skills, 89% of the time, that's the statistics. So with us, we're going to focus so much time on that because it's there that can increase your chances of getting hired 9 times. Now, when you're done that, then you need a real architecture portfolio. And a real architecture portfolio are architectural designs, reference architectures, architectural artifacts, RFP responses, what have you. And you have to build that. And with us, you're going to build, and you'll be able to prove to people you are an enterprise architect. And then after that, after you got all that stuff done, that's when it's time for certifications and branding. So that's where you get the 2 or 3 big certifications. So we would use, say, the Google Professional Cloud Architect, mix it with a TOGAF 10 and a CISSP for, say, an enterprise architect or a cloud architect like that. And that's going to get people to be interested in you. It's not going to teach you how to do the job, but that's going to get more people to come to you. But now you have the skills because you learned the skills before. Then after that, it's about crafting the right resume. With the resume is an advertisement that says, why do I talk to you? And 99% of the time when people put out an architect resume, it shows me that they don't even know what an architect is. So we're going to work with you on that and get you deep. And we're going to teach you how to get recruiters and others to come to you. Tune your resume, tune your LinkedIn profile. You'll get 200 to 300% more interviews on average. And now you'll have the skills to actually get hired. And then you've got to train the interview. And with us, we spend a lot of time training the interview, preparing the interview, because 97.4% of the people fail the interview. And they fail it for a variety of reasons. And a great interviewer like me, I've never been on an interview where I didn't get a job offer. So we train you how to be great at the job offer. So it takes all these things. But if you do it all, Tommy J, I see no reason why you couldn't at least become a cloud architect as your first job. And that's a good couple $100,000 a year job anyway, at least 200,000 or so on average. And maybe you get the enterprise architect job. Maybe worst case is if you never had a tech job in your life, you get $150,000 or $160,000 solutions architect job and take that and keep in it. And that's my perspective, but that's where I start. And that's where I typically start them in a cloud architect or solutions architect. Now I train them to be enterprise architects. And when I train enterprise architects, I train them with the cloud architects and an extra day. And that way they still can get these cloud architect jobs just in case they're not smooth enough for that enterprise architect job yet. Of course, if they stay with me, anybody in our training program stays in our programs until the day they're hired, so they could stay with us until they have that enterprise architect job. And we're committed to taking care of them. As long as they're not in that role, we want them to stay in our programs. We just want to get people hired. So the answer is yes. Tell me, why does the advertised range of enterprise architects look similar to cloud architects, solutions architects, and even some engineering jobs? I can tell you exactly. So when I started my network engineering career, I was told that the average network engineer was earning approximately $45,000 to $55,000 with zero experience. My first job, I got an $80,000 offer, and 6 months later, I got a $160,000 job offer. And all the time, what it said I was supposed to earn. So when it actually comes to looking at things and looking at the advertisements, the jobs for this enterprise architects, a lot of times, they're not going to be advertised. You're going to go to a Korn Ferry International or a Robert Half. And what happens, Tommy, is we can't, as hiring managers, get 10,000 people or 20,000 or 30,000 people that will apply for one of these jobs, the real high-paying enterprise architect jobs. Because what we're going to do is we're going to get bombarded with everybody that doesn't even know what an architect is. And in some companies, they get 5,000 actual applications for a single job, but there's not a single person of the 5,000 that could even do the job in the first place. So we use a tech recruiter, and specifically an executive tech recruiter like Korn Ferry International, for example, and they will speak to the employer. The employer will tell them about the job, and they will find their pedigreed people that can do it, and then they say them there. And then the employer pays, one of these companies $100,000 or more to find the employee. That's where most of these jobs are. Oh, the networking jobs that pay $500,000 a year or more, you're not going to see most of them advertised. Now, what you will see is if you look up an enterprise architect job, it's a grade 13 job at a company, say Cisco. And a grade 13 job is about $350,000 to $400,000 a year at Cisco. And if you start looking specifically at various companies, you'll find it. But the problem is that term enterprise architect is thrown around very loosely, like the term cloud architect is thrown around very loosely. A cloud architect designing highly strategic things. And then the last part of it is the big key of architect pay. The architect pay is, and if you see that where it says 150 to 280, see how big that range is for a relatively junior level tech job in architecture? What the difference is between the 150 and 280 is business acumen, leadership, sales, executive presence, emotional intelligence. The more of that you earn, the much higher your salary is. And then the question is, if you want to work like I did at a company where you're an enterprise architect, but you're more of a consulting architect, but you're still helping bring revenue into the company because you're there as a trusted advisor and you're making recommendations that are good for the client. And in many cases, you have a solution for the client. That brings in other things. So what goes into an architect's pay? For the most part, what you're seeing there is the base salary, which is 150 to 280, and that feels very accurate for an enterprise architect. And then there's bonus. And bonus could be 20 to 50% of your salary. And that's a very big component. Then there's restricted stock grants. So by the time you reach director level, you're typically at the end of the year, they're giving you a certain number of shares. Maybe here's 3,000 shares that vest over the course of 5 years. or 10,000 shares, or which I've had it more times as well, given to me at the end of the year. So that's 10,000 shares potentially, or thousands of shares in the company. Now, the next thing that most of these companies that have solutions architects, they're global companies. Solutions architects are pre-sales people. So they typically let you buy the company's stock at the lowest price it was for the most part at 2 years minus 15%. So that's typically another thing that's there. I personally, the fact that they'll typically match your 401k 100% for most of these jobs for the first $15,000 or so you contribute to it, that's an extra $15,000 that's there. So there's a lot that goes into architect pay. There's spiffs, there's other bonuses along the way. There's measurable business objectives, like they want you to do certain things and you do it and there's more money. So that's why they all look so weird. Because when you get to executive pay, and that was the thing that was weirdest to me when I started moving into these roles, my salary didn't change very much. But my bonus, you could have bought a fancy Mercedes with. But my salary didn't change. But the bonus did. It went from being able to say, buy a really nice Honda Accord to being able to buy a top end Mercedes that's really maxed out for pretty nicely. And that's what you'll see happen. And as you get there, there'll be executives that could buy 10 Porsches and 10 Mercedes per year or more, but it's all going to be bonus. And it's typically bonus and stock. I hope that helps. These are great questions. I'm glad they're coming in. Feel free to ask more questions. I don't have a ton of time, but I really do want to help. What about the AWS Cloud Practitioner? So, Richard, the AWS Cloud Practitioner is a certification that I would generally recommend you skip. And I'll tell you the exception where I would recommend it in a minute. The reason I really don't recommend the AWS Cloud Practitioner is it's a vocabulary test. It teaches the names of the AWS stuff, most of which you can't use because they talk more about the proprietary stuff. And it teaches you basic configuration of those things. What's missing from the AWS Cloud Practitioner is when you're done it, you still won't know what is cloud computing by any stretch of the imagination. You won't know the elements of cloud computing. You'll pass an AWS vocabulary exam. So no jobs will be available. There's nothing good that's going to come out of the certifications. For 99% of the people, I would say start with the AWS Solutions Architect Associate and then do the Solutions Architect Professional. The Solutions Architect Professional is just a good AWS certification. It's not an architect one. It's more of an ad one, but that's the one I would say. Now, here's when I would say do the AWS Cloud Practitioner. So let's say your goal is to pass the AWS Solutions Architect Professional. Let's say you have absolutely zero money and you're in a part of the world where they're going to give you free AWS Cloud Practitioner vouchers. Then, and you can't afford to take the test, but you got the opportunity to take the test free, I would say do the AWS Cloud Practitioner. No, it's not going to get you any job. Skip the AWS Solutions Architect Professional and then go straight to the Solutions Architect Professional, because the Cloud Practitioner can serve as a bridge to the professional, and I would say do that. And why would I say do that? Because when you pass the AWS Cloud Practitioner, if you're given a free voucher anyway, as soon as you're done that, you'll get half price off of the Solutions Architect Professional, and that's going to cut your cost down. But I would only suggest that if you really were indigent. Otherwise, I wouldn't waste 4 hours on the AWS Cloud Practitioner. It's going to do nothing for you. And many people would waste a week or two of their life on it. And when they're done, they still don't know what is cloud computing, and it's missing all the context of what it is. So I don't really ever recommend the AWS Cloud Practitioner. I only recommend the Solutions Architect Professional from AWS. It's a general AWS certification. But if you don't want to go straight to the Solutions Architect Professional, then I recommend, and you have a free access, do the Cloud Practitioner. Otherwise, skip it and go straight to the Solutions Architect Associate and then the Solutions Architect Professional and be done with your AWS certifications in most cases. Unless you want to be a DevOps engineer, because their DevOps professional is quite a good one. Quite a good one. And I like to use the AWS Advanced Networking as an intro to networking, kind of like a warm-up before we start teaching people networking. So I do like that too. Hope that kind of helps. Mike, is a college degree the only way to explain you have business skills to an employer? No. Employers no longer care about college degrees. So when I was younger, college degrees meant everything. And when we got out of college, we typically had skills. But unfortunately, what colleges have been teaching have not aligned with the skills that employers needed. It was recently posted in Harvard Business Review that 69% of employers that don't care about your experience and they don't care about your degrees anymore. Now, if you look at the big employers, IBM, Microsoft, AWS, Google, they drop degree requirements for almost every job. So here's how you display business skills. You communicate and show that you understand business. For example, if you meet the CEO and they're telling you that they've got a 16% CAGR and a 59% gross margin, you better know what that means. And not only do you better know what that means, you better be able to understand what that 16% compound annual growth rate and a 59% margin, they have a highly profitable business. So, and what they can do about that. But that also has implications. 16% compound annual growth rate, they're going to need to create a system because they're going to grow very rapidly and they can't be loosey-goosey with the business processes. So you could talk about what might need to occur. You could then get involved in understanding the business. Do they need a diversification model or a unification model, for example, and how that would impact their business? When you talk to them about their key architectural environment, you're going to ask about their key business processes, their key value streams, and you're going to be able to have a dialogue on that. That's showing your business acumen. When someone walks in there and you say, I can save you money by to the cloud, you look like a fool, and anybody looks like a fool. And here's the reason why. Without understanding the client's workload, you don't understand anything. Only once we understand the client's, say, weighted average cost of capital, and we understand the client's balance sheet and whether they're debt heavy or whether they've got a clean balance sheet, and understand that and what they need to do, can we recommend leasing, buying, or going to the cloud? So that's how you display your business acumen, when you make it very clear. When people speak to you in the language of business, you speak to them back in a clear language they understand about business. When someone wants to talk to you about something and you go straight to the tech, you prove to them you didn't know business. That's how you do it. So it's not going to be there. It has nothing to do with your degrees. And quite frankly, Freedom Lands, I've got lots of people that'll come to me, they've got advanced degrees, but that doesn't mean they know business. So we're going to assess them, we're going to ask questions, and then make it very clear. Great questions. You applied for a solutions architect role, wrote a writing interview, which was around an AI agent they want to build. You wrote the assessment and submitted. Any idea of the next phase? If they think you did a good job with their architecture, they will call you back. So typically what companies do is they have a screener. They either have someone from the manager or HR give you a quick call to see, hey, do you sound like a good person? Do you sound like someone they could work with? Do you sound positive? What have you? They may also give you something like a little paper thing to fill in to assess you. And what they were looking for, if you're in your assessment of an AI agent, potentially, might have been your understanding of the business, your understanding of the business pain points, your understanding of the challenges they're having with employees or what the business drivers are. And then your description of what the architecture could like, what the steps are to create the architecture. For example, they're going to be very concerned, or what kind of governance structures would you create around these architectures? What kind of change control, incident response procedures, what have you, would you be creating? So that's going to be what they want on the assessment. If they see that, typically speaking, they're going to bring you in. And they're typically 1 to 2 basic interviews of you. And then after that, it's typically a presentation that you have to give in front of a panel. And you have to prove them that you can present, that you can create a strategy. That strategy is going to solve business problems. And you can show the connectivity of whatever your architecture is to the business and how it's going to enhance it. So if you're designing the AI agent, how did it help? Which people did it replace? What were the fully loaded salaries of those people? What was the cost to build the agent? What is the projected return on investment for that organization? If they free up money from certain roles that people are doing repetitive tasks, part of that architecture is, are you going to retrain those people? Or are you going to move them to another thing? Or are you remove them out? But the architecture is there. You want to move them to a new team. You can't expect the employees you have to be able to function in a new job without the new skills. So if your AI agents are doing something, move it out and get there. So yeah, the next thing will probably be the interview case study. I just released a video on it. Check it out, and it talks about what goes on, why we give out case studies, what you're expected to do to the case studies, and even how to win. My team will have dropped the link for that. Chris, if you can drop the link for that video, I think it'll be very helpful for Augustine to understand that final round as he gets closer to it of the architecture role. But usually it's a screener, a couple of conversations with people on the team, and then a presentation. Great questions. Can technical trainer skills transfer easily to practice? Practice of what? Now, technical trainer skills will not translate into architecture at all. You'll have to learn the architecture skills. Now, technical trainer skills, let's say you're a CCIE and you're teaching Cisco networking all day. Yes, to a degree, that's going to translate to a network engineer's job. Absolutely. But if it's just someone that's teaching the basic certification stuff, for the most part, that doesn't equate to any career. And I retrain a lot of technical trainers and get them very good jobs that pay them far more. But the issue is knowing the difference. So like architecture is not really technical. Architecture is more about the business strategy. How do you make the business better? What does it take to make the business better? And I'll give you examples. So let's say an airline wants to save money on fuel. Airlines buy fuel contracts based upon options, based upon buying when they think they're going to get the lowest price for a period of time. Now, airlines have collected a lot of data of price supply and fluctuations over the years and purchase price and fuel utilization. And AI can make better predictions on when that airline can buy their fuel. And that could be a substantial enhancement in their reduction in their costs. So AI could do that. Now, the company may have a goal to increase the e-commerce sales on their website. And for you as an architect, you're going to be figuring, how can you do it? Could you create an AI recommendation engine that watches what the user has and what the user's behavior is, what they've been recently looking for, their patterns of behavior that you know, and make recommendations like a flash coupon to get them to leave with a purchase from your store? That could be something like that. Now, a hospital may be looking to make sure that they can use their operating rooms more efficiently because it's the only place where they don't go bankrupt or make any money is in the operating room. And maybe the operating rooms are understaffed because they can't coordinate the physicians and nurses' schedules properly. But AI could mine through that and potentially make that OR throughput go from 40% to 80% and double a hospital's profits. And then therefore they can care for patients that don't have insurance. So you have to think about the whole thing. That's architecture. So it's not like you're going to go from an engineer to an architect if that's your goal, because it's a completely different job. It's no different than if you went from physician to airline pilot. You'd have to learn it. Now, but the technical trainer skills are, like I said, if you were a CCIE teaching network engineering skills, would probably transfer to a degree fairly nicely. So let me know the career and then I can definitely help you. Oh, Shantu Kumar, please don't leave. You actually asked a very dangerous question, and I truly want to help you as a CCIE. You're taking a step-by-step approach to become a CCIE and then fully dedicate yourself to enterprise architecture. Do I think a CCIE on your resume will get you the interviews? Shantu Kumar, I'm going to tell you what happened when I got my first enterprise architect job as an executive. I was asked to remove the CCIE from my business cards and the CISSP. And here's the reason why. As an enterprise architect, the CCIE is going to make you look like a techie, and it's going to make us not want to interview you. We're going to assume you're a network engineer. So truth be told, when I really work, I take the CCIE off of my things and I highlight my business acumen. So I was known at a company, Shantu Kumar, as a solutions architect. And I had a CCIE, you can see it in the background. My number is 7417 back when it was a horrible 2-day exam. Now it's a 1-day exam. The pass rate has gone up. It's still a hard exam. And what ultimately happened, I had my solutions architect job. I was enjoying it. And when I heard about these executive architect roles and my manager told me about them, I was so interested. So I noticed that the executives, the enterprise architects didn't act like the rest of the solutions architects. They came to work in suits. So I started coming into work as in a suit each day. I asked my manager, what do I need to do? And he had told me, and he said, Mike, increase your business acumen, increase your sales skills, increase your leadership skills, increase your executive presence, increase your emotional intelligence. Make sure you understand business, how key business processes work, and the impact on the business. And he said, stop focusing on your tech. I said, tech. So I did that. Now, all of a sudden, I'm in an executive architect role. And now I'm talking about strategy. And I'm talking about leadership. And I'm talking to people like, to some of the most highest position military, government, and CEOs throughout the world. And I'm now giving them executive briefings. And we're having big discussions about the technology's impact on their organization. And I'll tell you, I had that job, and somehow I ended up in a bank, and the bank was really, really concerned about how they could potentially get their network to converge faster, because the downtime of, say, an OSPF convergence was long. They were doing these crazy things. They were thinking about changing the timers, and somehow I got there and I made this mistake. And I said, why are you worried about this? I said, it's going to be so easy. We can get you at a 40 milliseconds failover very easily. All we have to do is get rid of the EIGRP, turn this into a single area OSPF over time. With that, we'll turn on RSVP signaling. We'll turn on labeled distribution protocol. We'll make a primary path and a backup explicit path in MPLS. And Bob's your uncle, you're done. The room went silent, and someone said, Mike, I didn't see you as that engineer. Don't do that again. And I went, okay. So that's what happens when you see overly technical as an enterprise architect. So instead of doing the CCIE, train to be an enterprise architect. Instead of doing the CCIE, if your goal is to be an enterprise architect, do an MBA, because the MBA will take the same amount of time as the CCIE. The CCIE is $20,000 to $40,000. The MBA, try to get one cheap if your goal is to do that. But train to be an enterprise architect and don't do the CCIE. Now, I'll give you the opposite example. I'm training a 16-year-old right now. And that 16-year-old's a little worried about getting his first network architect job at 18 years old when he graduates high school. So in his particular case, I said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you a CCIE along with your CISSP. And if for some reason at 18 years old, nobody wants to take you seriously yet as a network architect, at least you'll get a 6-figure network engineering job for a year, and then you'll move into an architecture role. Now, if he was 21 years old, I never would have said it. But at 16, I mean, people don't think you've got a lot of years and wisdom and experience. So in his case, I said, do the CCIE for the network architect role, because it makes sense. If you told me security architect, I'd probably say the CISSP is what I wanted you to do. But for the enterprise architect, please don't do a CCIE, because ultimately you're going to want to be taking it off of your resume, off of your business cards. And if you don't, you'll either not get the opportunities and not get the offers. Display business acumen, display leadership. Do not pretend to be an extra tech person. And then there's a second side of it. You want to do the CCIE to feel like you've accomplished something. That is totally fine. Totally fine. The question I have for you is, do you want to accomplish something that's going to help you get closer to your dream? Or do you want to accomplish something hard that's going to get you farther away from your dream? As far as boosting self-confidence, well, you need to boost your self-confidence. We all need to boost our self-confidence. I don't personally believe you can necessarily boost your confidence from doing something like that. I think you have to learn to believe in yourself. I think you have to put yourself through all kinds of challenges. And I think it changes the way you think about things, how you take in information, which is why we teach cognitive behavior therapy to people that we work with. But there's nothing wrong with doing the CCIE. Go do it. I loved it too, but just think about it. And if you're looking for a big challenge, maybe do an MBA. But whatever it is, just think about, is it getting you closer to your goal or further away from your goal? And I can't tell you what your goal is. Maybe you wanted to be a network architect, and I love that. I'm a network architect. It's one of my favorite architecture jobs. I moved out of network architecture into enterprise architecture because it paid double, and it was more fun for me at some point focusing on the big picture than it was focused on the network. But I love the time I spent in my CCI. It was some of the most fun time of my life. And then now that it's my own business, you can see it in the background. But if I ever had to go to work for someone, I'd have to remove it. So keep that in the back of your mind. And 46 years, what's that have to do with anything? That's young. Sig was 63 years when he got him his job. Robert was 61. 46 is so young. Got so much more you can do. I would wish I was 46 again. Can an IT technician become a security? What will it take? You're from the UK. So you're going to have to be trained. So Michael A was a student of mine. He's happy if I use his name. He was in one of those IT technician roles, and he took our course, and now he's working as a security architect. We had a couple people that were in technician roles, but it's not technicians. Nicole was a student of ours. She's a teacher, and now she's working as an architect. Camille was a registered nurse, and now she's a director of architecture. I came from internal medicine. Balwinder was a stay-at-home mom. Now, Jennifer was a mental health tech, and she got hired. But I've got people getting hired in England all the time. Michael, who I just mentioned, got hired in England. Nafuli, who got his first tech job as a chief technology officer, was in Manchester. Emmanuel just got a security architect job as his first tech job, and he was also in the London type metro. There's been so many people that have been in England that we've trained. We train people worldwide. Ian was someone that we got a great job at Capgemini. So lots of people we take in England, lots of people we take in Europe, lots of people we take in Africa, lots of people we have in the Middle East. We're everywhere. And we'd love to work with you. And we can definitely help you. And if you train with us and you're in our security architect program, I'm going to make it very clear. We expect you to stay in that program until the day you're hired. This is not a boot camp. We won't kick people out. We expect you to be with us until you have that security architect job. Because that's the pride point for me. That's why I created a course and basically charge what our costs are. I'm doing this because I love architecture. I want other people to have these great jobs. And I want to create the next generation of leaders. So I'd love to train you. And we've got a webinar coming on Monday on security architecture. Please join us. We've got actually a 50% sale off now on all architecture courses. But if you want to learn more, join us on Monday, and we'll present. We'll meet face to face, and I'll ask you questions and assess you and build you a plan. And I'm happy to do it completely free. Andy, how Mike, do you think basic level understanding is business acumen important to all roles? Well, so if you're in finance and you don't know business, there's no reason to have you in the company. None. So can't have you in finance. Human resources is about finding people, determining what they should be paid. Generally can't hire them if they don't have business knowledge anyway. Now, Andy, let's look at the disasters of most technology problems. And 80 to 90% of all technology projects provide zero business value. So clearly having IT people that don't know business is meaning that 9 out of 10 times the business gets hurt by investing in technology. So I feel business is pretty necessary for everyone. Andy, I actually think it was one of the secrets for me and even getting every job I ever had. Because if I understood the way the business worked that I was working for, and I understood how to help that business because I understood business, then I can help them. So yeah, all in all. So yes, business acumen is definitely necessary. You're engaging when talking with people, but not when presenting. Any advice on if you can give resources to be a better presenter? Andy, I know you well, so I want you to do more of it so I can give you more coaching. Now, there is a really good book called Presenting to Win. You actually see it, and it's in my background. Presenting to Win was written by Jerry Weissman. Let me see if I can find it. This particular book, yes, I always knock something over every time I pull something from the shelf. Jerry Weissman is a legend in giving tech presentations. He trained John Chambers, basically all of the Cisco executives, and I used to get training programs that were created by him. I would read Presenting to Win from Jerry Weissman. Now, he also wrote a book called In the Line of Fire. And that In the Line of Fire was about how to answer questions live. For someone like me that would be interviewed by the media, knowing how to answer them, what to say, what not to say. And anybody that's giving executive level presentations is going to be constantly getting answered questions live. And it taught me a lot about how to be better at that. So huge fan of Jerry Weissman and Presenting to Win. Great question, Andy. What are the certifications to become a cloud architect? So, Alex, I want to make something clear. You actually have to have the skills of an architect prior to taking these certifications. That's why for us, step 1 is learn to be a security architect. Step 2 is be what the hiring manager wants. Step 3 is to build a real security architecture portfolio that proves you're an architect, not. Step 4 is certifications and branding. And step 5 is interview training. But assuming you've already trained to be an architect, the certifications for the cloud security architect are the CISSP. That's your basic intro to security that we love. The CCSP, which is specific cloud challenges that you have, which are very substantial in the cloud compared to the data center. And the CISM, which teaches you how your client thinks, the people that are going to buy your security architectures. And Chris from my team is going to post the video for that too, because we made a video on certifications. But I want you to understand this. Certifications get you an interview. Architect skills get you a job. They're very different. For an architect, we're gonna have a webinar on Monday night. We're gonna go over the exact set of skills that you need and what it takes to be competent, what it takes to be great, and that's the conversation I would love to have with you. Great question there. How difficult is it moving back to techno manager role if one has spent the last 5 years in customer success? So, having spent the last 5 years in customer success sounds like a really great place to be, especially if you are making your clients more successful, especially if there was a lot of leadership roles in there. But pushing automation for simple or medium tasks, that's not the kind of customer success that I'm traditionally seeing as customer success. But if you were helping clients that were doing these things and you're coordinating resources, what have you, for them, that could be pretty big. Now, if you're going to move to a manager of engineers, what really matters more has nothing to do with your tech skills. In fact, the worst managers I ever had were the most technical ones. The best managers I had were people that were good managers. They may have been technical, but they acted like managers, not technical people. So what really matters is what's your ability to lead? What's your ability to inspire people to want to work? How good of a presentation can you give? How good can you sell the team to be on board and motivate them? What's your ability to exercise influence? And what's your ability to lead? And what's the knowledge of business that you have so you can solve business problems for the organization with your team of people? If that's the case, it's easy. If the case is those are not the skills you have, then you're going to have to get some training in those things and you're going to be just fine. It has nothing to do with what you've done in the past. Nothing. It's the most irrelevant thing to me. If yesterday you ate something for dinner that was bad for you, that doesn't mean you couldn't start today in the gym and eating healthy again. You can literally take on any of these roles you'd absolutely desire. So just focus on your leadership skills, your ability to sell, because you got to sell leadership up and leader about you to manage up, so to speak. You got to sell your employees to want to work. Focus on your ability to exercise influence. Focus on your communication skills. Focus on your presentation skills, because you're going to be delivering a lot of presentations to your teams and your executives. You do that, you should be great moving exactly back to where you're at. Great question, Prom. Style Plus, you just got hired as a data infrastructure engineer. Congratulations. I'm so happy to see this. You used to be an IT technician. You'll be working on architecting and observability and monitoring dashboard for a utility company. Wonderful. Congratulations, Style Plus. I am so happy to hear this. Thanks for letting us know, too. This is great. I know I've seen you in other events, and this makes me so happy. You're currently taking a new 2-year networking course, and you're on your 3rd year, and you can choose cybersecurity, but now maybe you're thinking cloud security. So, Mike, what have you been actually learning in the networking course? I'm actually curious because, for example, if I asked you what are the LSAs that exist in what type of areas in OSPF, would you be able to answer it? There's a reason I'm asking. If I were to ask you, how would you minimize IBGP peering sessions, and what are the limitations, the strengths and weaknesses of the opportunities, would you know how to answer that? Okay. So the key is focusing. Those would be the kind of things that I would expect someone to be very strong in networking. Security also would be something where it's designing the strategy. You want to become a security architect. You're not going to learn that by learning security engineering, which is how to configure a firewall or how to configure an IDS system. You're going to need architecture training. Now, with us, you could do your 3rd year to get a degree. We're actually going to teach you the security actually that matters in our security architecture program. So we're going to teach you zero trust. We're going to teach you network security. We're going to teach you IAM security. We're going to teach you cryptography. We're going to teach you risk management and everything that goes along with it. We're going to teach you physical security, everything. And when you're done, you're going to have a really good career. So maybe do our course, get a great security architect job. You could probably get that in about a year. While you're getting that, you'll actually have a job and then finish your degree and let your employer pay for it. So I'm assuming you're on a 4-year tech course or something like that. So that's what I would do. Now, generally speaking, whatever I would do, I would just master it. I mean, truly, truly, truly master it. If you train with us, you're going to master it. But for me, if I'm going to talk about networking, my new entry level in the world of AI for an engineer is a CCIE. And that's ridiculous. But remember, we're in the world of AI, so I need people that can evaluate trade-offs, what have you. So if you want to push the networking thing and you want to do it as an engineer, get the CCIE. If you want to do it as an architect, now it's more of an engineering thing. So really, but a cloud security architect, yes, we have a course. And my expectation is you will take this course and stay in it until the day you're hired. There's no time limit on our course. Our course is taught live on Zoom and online at your own pace. We record any class that in case you miss it. We're going to have a deep discussion on the security architect program on Monday evening. But realistically speaking, I can definitely say that I think the security architecture career would be the best thing you could possibly do right now. Globally, there's about 5 million people, shortages of people in cybersecurity. Businesses can't find them no matter what they do. So I definitely would say cybersecurity is a great one. Although I think a security architect is always going to be better than a security engineer. More options, higher pay, faster career rising, and a lot less work. But it is up to you. And please feel free to join me on any webinar. Tomorrow we have a webinar on interviews. Monday, we've got a webinar on how to become an architect. Join me on any of them, honestly. And realistically speaking, if you want to ask any questions face-to-face live on Zoom, we're good. You want me to interview you and see if you're job ready? Fine. We'll do it on a webinar. They're free. I just want to help you. So I'd love to train you. I'd love to see you in our security architect webinar. But if there's anything you want to know in security, I think it's great. But the security architect work can't be replaced by AI. Extremely well paying, in huge demand. And the world's not getting any safer. So there's lots and lots of security there. Great, great question. If I can help in any way, let me know. I'm test user. You're 37 years old. If you start cloud, could you find a job? I don't honestly understand the question. If you were 60 years old, you could find a job. So if you're asking, are you too young? No. Between 40 and 60 is probably optimal because at that point, you've got some experience, you've had some judgment and things like that. Now, I've gotten people as young as is what's his name? Daniel, a job at JP Morgan Chase. He was 20 years old when he was hired. But most of the people that I work with are, 30 to 50. Sig was 63 years old when he got his job. What was Roberts? He was 61 when we got him a security architect job. What does age have to do with anything? I just don't understand. I get more job offers after 50 than I did before 40. It's all about how good you are, what your competency is, and your skills. Don't let age get in your way. That's nothing you ever need to be concerned about. What is the transition path from application architect to enterprise architect? What certifications and skill sets will help you? So, will AI impact the enterprise architecture role? Yes. AI increases the number of architects that are required, and here's the reason why. Every tool that you actually have that can be used for competitive advantage is something organizations want. And who are the people that design the strategy? The architects. The architects. So keep that in the back of your mind. So if you are a true application architect, and here's what I mean by a true application architect, not someone with an application architect title. A true application architect speaks to the CEO, understands the business goals. A true application architect has a good understanding of the business architecture, the business's key value streams, and the business's key processes. A really strong application architect can then ask the users what they need and what the business needs and create a strategy and a workflow that's going to augment the business. A real enterprise architect will be able to look at the architectural trade-offs of approach 1 versus approach 2 versus approach 3. A really good application architect can sell $1 billion solution, can lead a team of 40 or 50 people, and give a presentation that's going to change minds. So if you have those skills, you don't need to do anything. You can immediately transition over. And you, of course, need, MBA type business acumen. Whether you have an MBA or not, you're going to need that. So assuming you have those skills, you need nothing. If you are like Lohit, for example, who was an application architect, we trained him. No, he was a software developer. We trained him into an application architect role. I've had people like Pritapal that was an application architect, and we moved him into an enterprise architect role with our training program. So typically speaking, it takes a lot more business skills. It takes a lot more leadership skills. It takes a lot more executive presence. It takes much better sales skills and much better business knowledge. So take an MBA or take a course like ours. But I've trained many, many people into these big architect roles. But like I said, if you already have those skills, then you don't need anything. Now, getting a TOGAF 10 will help you get more interviews. It won't teach you anything about architecture. It'll tell you step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, but it won't tell you how to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So get the training and you'll be good. Or if you have all those skills exactly the way I said them, then there's nothing for you to do. Just go apply for an enterprise architect job. Hope that helps. Please feel free to come to the webinar. We'll have a deeper discussion on it. If you want to be an enterprise architect or an AI architect, should you getting TOGAF certs and GCP certs for branding purposes? Or would TOGAF be enough with proper training? So it depends on your profile. So here's what I mean. If you're David Lithicum, you have to take the certifications off of your resume because the certifications don't reflect well on us. What reflects well on David Lithicum or me or Russ White is our judgment, our leadership, our executive presence, our ability to drive results. And that's why we've all been principal distinguished architects or chief architects. At that point, I have to take the certifications off of my resume because they're more concerned about our business and our leadership skills. And we don't want to have the wrong brand. Now, by comparison, if you've never worked in tech before, TOGAF 10 looks awfully good. A Google Professional Cloud Architect looks good. And unfortunately, there's 0 real AI certifications. There's an AWS AI practitioner, which is a vocabulary test. And nobody's going to hire you for vocabulary. So there really are no good AI certifications right now that are meaningful in any way, shape, or form. So as long as you have the right training, I'd probably get those two. The TOGAF and maybe one of the cloud provider professional things. And I'd start with that. And I'd focus much more on my AI architecture knowledge because there's nobody out there that knows anything. And AI architecture means understanding the business needs and understanding how to create solutions that solve business problems other than just how to slop a bunch of stuff together. And because David Lithicum is teaching our course, And he's been in AI, working with AI solutions since 1985. I don't think he'll have a problem with us. I think he's pretty terrific on that. But no, TOGAF 10, a cloud cert should be enough. I generally recommend 3 certs for every training program. Like for the cloud architect, it would be, say, the Google Professional Cloud Architect or AWS Solutions Architect Professional or Azure Solutions Architect, one of the 3, along with the TOGAF 10 and the CISSP. But an enterprise architect, that CISSP might be too much at that point. Might be too more on the technical side, so we don't want too much. So I'd probably do the 2 and highlight much more business skills, create more leadership content, create more sales content, create more thought leadership and influence, and show to the world you're an enterprise architect. Great question, Tommy J. Glad to see you. I only have a few minutes more, but I'll do anything I can to help you. How long does it take to get expert and job and security architect for a beginner? So let's talk about the difference between an expert and talk about how long to get your first job. It takes us on average between 8 to 12 months to get someone their first architect job. Now, what does it take to be an expert? It takes at least 10,000 hours after you have the job doing the job to be considered an expert. At least. So kind of think about that. Now, if we look at how long does it take for a physician to get done medical school, by the time they're done all their residencies, it's about 10,000 hours. My nurse practitioner internal medicine training was 9,000 hours of clinical things. So by the time we were at day level practice, we were good. Our architect training is approximately, for a security architect, 500, 600 hours, something. Actually, they're probably closer to 1,000 hours than that. So that's 1/10 of it. Our 1,000 hours is, by comparison to our competition, is 10 times more. Our architects are great, top 25% when they graduate from us, of the people already working in the field. But to be an expert, it's going to take at least 5 years. So I passed the CCIE within 9 months of the time I decided I was going to learn networking. And I'll tell you, when I got done that CCIE, I realized how much I didn't know about networking. 5 years later, after the CCIE, now I knew networking, and I really knew what I knew, and I knew what I didn't know. Now, 10 years later, I really knew networking, and 30 years later, I'm still in it, or 25 years, more than 25 years later, but I kind of hope that helps. So getting the job, no big deal. With the right training, you can probably do that in about a year, less than a year even. Now, becoming an expert in that job, that's going to take at least 5 years. At least 5 years. Some people never get there. The principal architects, the distinguished architect, are typically your get there. Now, I was a principal architect within 2 years. But I want you to understand what those 2 years were like. 4,000 hours from work, 1,000 hours of CCIE time, and I also spent a few thousand hours reading. So that's how I got my 10,000 hours in about 2 years, which is when I became a principal architect. But you can definitely do it. Great question, Prem. Please feel free to ask more. You're 24, you're trying to master Linux right now, but it's very difficult, and then moving to Python and any other coding language you should get down before applying the job. So, Mike, I'm an architect. You will not be touching Linux as an architect. You will not be touching Python as an architect, and you will not be coding as an architect. It's been 25 years as an architect, and I'm not allowed to touch Linux or Python. I wouldn't know how to code. I know how to design a strategy. I know how to close $1 billion deal, and I closed a $1.1 billion deal. I know what it takes to lead an architecture team. I know what it takes, but the point is there's no Linux, there's no Python, there's nothing in these roles. And you know who can use Linux and Python? AI. So I kind of hope that actually helps. Okay, is the CCNA useful? Your school gives you 60% off when you graduate. The CCNA is a great introduction, a great preparation. If you wanted to work in networking, somewhere between the CCNP and the CCI level skills, you're hireable. So yes, it's going to be good to take, but it's not going to be close enough. You're going to have much greater networking skills than that if you want to work in networking. And to put it into context, Mike, before I started networking, I got a CCNA, a CCNP, a CCDA, and a CCDP, and not a single company in the entire world cared about it. Now, after that, I learned the skills that I needed, and then I got my first offer. And 3 months after my first offer, I was a CCIE. So if you want to be an architect, please don't learn Python. If you want to be an architect, I need you to learn business. I need you to learn strategy. I need you to learn sales. I need you to learn how the technology works. And I'll give you the example. I need you to understand the OSPF finite state machine. So what happens when OSPF is in init? What's going on when it's in XStart, exchange, loading, full? How do those LSAs propagate across the network? How does OSPF make a routing decision? How does OSPF behave like a distance vector protocol, and when is it acting like a link state protocol? How do we deal with the type 5 LSAs coming in if a link flaps? That's what I need you to know, because that's where the real work goes. The real work goes. So I hope that's going to make sense for you. So yes, the CCNA is a good start, but it's nowhere close to enough. It takes about 2 weeks to prepare someone for the CCNA exam. So, and there's actually a free CCNA exam training on our YouTube channel. I tend to think you're probably going to get more out of our 2 weeks of YouTube CCNA training than you're probably getting over the course of a few years related to networking. So why don't you do that one free? And definitely the CCNA would be a good thing along the way. Definitely. But it's not going to be enough. I hope that makes sense. I'm happy to talk to you live on any webinar about why. Chris, let's go to the next one. Where does the security architect program potentially place under the hierarchy of a CIO? So, John, that's a great question. I actually drew out the architecture roles earlier today. So let me go find that architectural diagram that I drew. And I'm going to show you one of 2 places where you'll see the security architect listed. Bear with me 1 second. Just takes a minute to set this up. So in this type of an organization, let me back out of it, because there's 2 ways these organizations are structured. In a normal organization, the security architect will be under the cloud architects and enterprise architects on the way to the CIO role. And as we go this way, we typically earn higher salaries. As we go this way, we get more businessy. As we go the opposite direction, we get more techy. So the security architect typically sits here in most companies. Now, there are companies that are aligned differently. So there are some companies that do this. Let me draw a different version, because there are some companies that are becoming this now. So basically, let's say up here, you've got the CEO. You typically have the company's number 2, who's the chief operating officer. And then you typically have the chief financial officer. Now, in some highly strategic organizations, the CIO is placed in the same league. In some, you'll see the CIO here. Now, what you can also see is some organizations will have the CIO here, and they will have something else called the Chief Information Security Officer. Now, some companies will place this Chief Information Security Officers under the CIO, and other places they will place them as peers as the Chief Information Officer. So if that's the case, what you'll ultimately see is something like this. You'll see this big enterprise architecture practice over here. And then sometimes under the, you'll see the enterprise architecture here. Sometimes you'll see the operations people over here for the basic IT operations, like the VP of IT. And in this case, they may place the security architects here. There are some companies that will do this. Now, this is a company that views their CIO as a second-class citizen to the CEO and COO, but they view the CISO almost as important as the CIO, and that way they're at parity. The problem with this is we place extra emphasis on security, but now these teams may not know as much of what's going on over here. So typically what you'll normally see in most organizations is you're going to have this enterprise architect, chief architect, strategist. You're typically going to have your IT position. And in many cases, you're going to have your CISO here at parity with, say, your chief architect and your VPs of IT. And in most cases, this makes the most sense because by doing this, the enterprise architecture practice and the CISO are looking at everything from the top. So we've got people, which is enterprise architecture. How do the people best do their jobs, processes, and tech? And by doing so, we've also integrated security from job one. And then what would happen in a place like this is another enterprise. This is what I'm going to call this chief architect to make it easier. And then this is the enterprise architect. And then under here, you'd have your cloud architects, functionally speaking, because everything is a hybrid multi-cloud at this point. And then you'll have your people underneath them, your specialty architects, like your security architects, your network architects. That's typically the way most organizations are here. And the reason is this person is responsible for getting stuff done. They're typically responsible for the chief architect, who's the people process technology executive, and the CISO kind of is in here focused on security. So it's typically in that location to the CEO. Hope that actually helped answer that question. Great question, John. It's so nice to see you here. Chris, please bring the next one in when you can. Most architect roles are mid-level to senior level. You just got into AWS, but do not have real life experience. What roles would be best for you? The solutions architect role or cloud architect role? There is nothing that you're going to learn by working as an engineer that's going to teach you to be an architect. Nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And there's no rule that says you have to do another job. Debbie's first job was at Credera as a solutions architect after we trained her. Al's first job was a senior solutions architect at Deloitte. First tech job, that's why I'm picking him. Vladimir was a 24-year-old college student. His first tech job was over at North Highland. I remember training him. Gladys was a project manager, and I forget where she went for her first tech job, but she did a YouTube video with us. You could see her. Jennifer was the mental health tech who went to JP Morgan Chase. Nicole was a teacher. Camille was a nurse who's now a director of architecture. Arun, he was working at Home Depot, not in a tech role, and he got his first job as a cloud architect after we trained him. I always talk about Yvonne and Jordan because they were two 24-year-old buddies from Cameroon, these two really great guys, and they went through our program together. Were hired by AWS within about 6 months. Jeffrey was a geospatial imaging guy. We got him his first job over at Kalian. It was his first tech job ever. Where did we get... so Emmanuel just got his first security architect. So we don't have a problem with this. These are mid-level roles. And the key is you have got two choices. And choice one is try to start on the bottom and hope you learn stuff along the way. And then hope your company sends you an MBA program to learn how to be an architect or what have you, like mine did. Or, train to be an architect from day one. Now, I've been an architect for the last 25 years. I started out in this role. So there's this myth about your experience. The reality is I can't hire an architect. And while I just gave you 10 people or 15 people's names that never worked in tech, I'll tell you, I've been training cloud engineers too. And they're a little harder than the cloud architects to train to be cloud architects and solutions architects. Because an engineer builds stuff. So the engineer codes, the engineer configures. But the architect doesn't do that. As the architect, you're going to have to meet with the CEO and ask about their business. You're going to have to ask a bunch of stakeholders about their business goals. And I promise you won't learn that from engineering. As the architect, you're going to have to build the business case to show the company what's in it for them and their return on investment. As an architect, you're going to have to respond as an RFI, RFP, and as an RFQ, as we do it all the time. As an architect, you're going to have to create architectural review boards, change control structures. As an architect, you're going to have to create training and incident response procedures. As an architect, you're going to be crafting business cases. As an architect, you're going to lead a team of 15 to 50 people. So you give me someone with 20 years of engineering experience, and I say, great, they're going to be an architect. I'm going to train them. And it's going to take me about a year. like Harsha, who was a cloud engineer for 10 years before he got his first architect job, or Jazz, who had 10 years of cloud engineering experience to get hired by AWS. I'm going to make it very clear. Yvonne and Jordan joined at the same time as Jazz. Yvonne was a waiter. Jordan was also a waiter, and they were hired by AWS in 6 months. But Jazz took 12 months because he had to unlearn how to be an engineer and now learn what an architect is. I'm going to make it very clear. You can get into any AWS job you want, any cloud job you want, but you're going to need the right skills. So why don't you tell me which job you actually want, and then I'll tell you the skills that are necessary for those jobs, because the certification is not going to be anything. The AWS Solutions Architect Professional alone is nothing. It's a beautiful wrapping paper around an empty box. You want to learn cloud engineering skills? You're going to be great. And then you'll still get that certification after you've got the skills. Want to be an architect? Great. Why don't you read the guide on how to become a cloud architect below? My team, it's a question it's a free guide. We also have it for AI architects, and you can learn a lot of careers along the way and figure out what's going to make you very happy. And then come back when you know what your role is. I'm running out of time. I've got 2 questions left, and I want to do anything I can with these last 2 questions. Yes. Is there a completion with us to land your first job in 6 to 9 months with a complete focus? Well, Prem, I can say you can look at the complete curriculum, and maybe you finish it in 6 to 9 months, and maybe it's a little longer. If you want to get me to gauge how long it's going to take, what you can do is you can come to any of our webinars, and I will ask you questions, and I will see how you present, and I will see how you communicate, and I will check your underlying knowledge, and I'll give you more of a baseline. But having said that, I had Joe M. He was a dual CCIE. He was from Cisco. He also had a sales background, and he was hired by AWS as a senior solutions architect in 3 weeks. A Richard O. I was a Nigerian student of mine, one of my first students. He was hired by AWS within a month or 2. But, that is an exception. So 6 to 9 months, totally reasonable. But I'd like to say that versus 8 to 12 months, but I'd like to see you or speak to you first. But yes, there's a curriculum. My team is happy to provide, a syllabus for you. If you can book a call with our team, Chris from my team will provide a link to the website. We're happy to share the syllabus with you. But join us for a webinar, and we can have a full conversation. I can ask you questions, and I can assess you. And that way I can say where you're at and say, you're going to need this, and this. You're going to be easy, or you're going to take a little longer. But I'll always be honest with you, and I'll do anything I can to help you along the way. So for a cloud architect or a security architect, you don't need a knowledge on coding. No, not at all. Because it's not part of our job. I don't know how to code. Why would I know how to code? It's not an architect. So I want to talk about the difference of why coding is not valuable to the architect. Well, as an architect, I'm creating a strategic blueprint. What are the people going to do? How are they going to do their jobs? Now, as a security architect, I'm focused on networking things, like where do I put my firewalls? Where do I put my intrusion detection systems? Do I use this intrusion detection system versus this one? Should I use a context-aware IAM system? What are the strengths and weaknesses of that one? What about attribute-based? Oh, that's kind of complex. Do we want to do role-based? Should we get a cloud access security broker to describe the strategy? That's security architecture. So with the exception of an application architect that designs applications, coding is of no value to you whatever. Now, coding is just like learning another language. I don't know how to code because there's no purpose in my life. Now, I do speak multiple languages. And if you told me you spoke multiple languages, I would say that could be a benefit. For example, if you spoke Arabic, there's 1 billion people in the world that speak Arabic. That could help you sell and design architectures to 1 billion more people. If you spoke French, that would open a wide variety of countries in Africa you can communicate with, parts of Europe you can communicate with, parts of the Caribbean you can communicate with and do business. That will enhance you. But knowing Python, not for an architect. We don't code. We don't touch the technology. We design it. We sell it. We lead large teams. So no, that's not really going to help you. Now, if you wanted a technician job where you're going to write a script or something for more of a technician or an admin, then coding would be a very valuable and a critical skill. But there's no coding in architecture. And if you ask an architect, how to configure the things, how to set up a firewall, they don't know because it's not their job. But they do know how to design your demilitarized zone and what it should be. We do know how to design your zero trust architectures. We do know what kind of physical security that we need around that data center, your ingress points, your egress points, how to control those points. We definitely need that. We know how to quantify risk and look at the organization's risk. and determine how to best manage that risk. Do we mitigate that risk with the technical control? Do we accept the risk? Do we transfer the risk to an insurance company? These are architecture. It has nothing to do with engineering, which is why engineering doesn't generally teach you architecture. Join us on Monday night. It's going to be late at night. I'm not sure where in the world is, so sign up for it. And if you can't be there, we'll send you the recording as long as you register for the webinar. And I think that is really going to help you better plan your future. And I think it'll help eliminate a lot of confusion. So thank you for asking questions. I do want to help. I'll be back next week completely free. Tomorrow, we're going to have a free webinar. It's going to be live on Zoom. It'll be fun. Come join us. It's going to be on the interview and why you need to prepare for the interview. And I'll go over some secrets to winning the interview. And of course, that'll be about 30 minutes. And after that, we'll answer any questions you want about you, your career. It'll be live on Zoom. So feel free to ask me and my team any questions that you desire there. I hope to see you. So please, my team will drop the link to that. On Monday night, we're going to talk about how to be some security architect, what we do, the actual skills you need, why it's one of my favorite AI-proof careers in the world. And we can talk about that on Monday. All architect careers are AI-proof, by the way. And we've got lots of videos as to why. I also want to let you know that we have 50% off of everything right now. We don't do it that often, so please take advantage of it. I just can't wait to see you in class, can't wait to train you in class, and I can't wait for the day you tell me you're hired. If you've enjoyed this video, maybe give it a like, maybe subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified of new videos. And have a wonderful day, everyone. Take care.